passe. Oh, l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Hello there. This is the Uninformed Handball Hour, brought to you by Brian Campion, Christopher Riley and Alex Kulesh. And today on the podcast, we're going to give all the teams from Group A in the Champions League a grade, like in school, like it's midterm. And we're going to give all the teams a grade from A to, yes, F, depending on how well we think they did. Yeah,
not the terrible German 1 to 6 style. Forget that.
What did they do in Denmark? Is it ABC or is it 1, 2, 3?
I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, so it goes along that level. But let's stick with the, everyone knows what an A is and everyone knows what an F is, so we can stick with that.
A is good. F is fail.
Yes.
E is also fail.
But I've given mine like A minus, B plus, that kind of stuff.
Of course.
Very, very accurate. Yeah. Because sometimes it didn't really sit right. It was just like an A. I was like,
yeah. It's a bit more nuanced.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, let's see how many D minuses we hand out today.
But yeah, it's good to be talking about the men's side of handball again. We had the women's Euros, which was fully engrossing, really good fun, and good to focus back on the Champions League on the men's side, which kept going in the meantime, and continues to truck on. So I'm excited to delve into the teams.
Yeah, we're now 9 rounds in. There's 1 round left before the end of 2022 and the international break. So it's a good time to check in now that everyone has played each other as well, at least once. So I think it's a good time to get a feel for where these teams are. How do we want to do it? Do you want to do Group A and then top to bottom? How about that?
I think, we start at number 1 place, Group A, and work our way down.
Okay.
And then progressively get shorter, maybe as we go down. I don't know. Less to say as they get worse. Or maybe more to say as they get worse, depending on how we do it. But let's start with PSG then. Mm-hmm. PSG, top of Group A. 11 wins, 1 loss in the French League. And then only 8 wins and 1 loss in the Champions League. So I think a pretty good season. I'll start maybe. I gave them just a straight A. No A minus, no A plus, just A.
Why is that?
I think they're probably a lot more likeable of PSG teams than PSG teams of past. I think we've seen people like Luke Steins, Yannick Green, Shipshack on the line, who I've literally wrote his name down here in my notes as Shipshack because I can never spell that name and I'll never be able to spell it for the rest of my life.
Top scorer in the Champions League, Kamil Shipchak, 66 goals, and redefining
it's ridiculous
of what a line player is. He now takes 7 meters, very good at them. And in that last game, he even gave a beautiful behind the back pass into the wings. So he is doing it all, and he's been a real revelation for them.
MVP of the season so far.
In preparation for this last round, just looking through all the stats and couldn't believe he was top. I was like, what is going? Because PSG are a team that have snuck up on me this season because I haven't paid since the beginning of the season. Haven't paid too much attention to them because they're kind of just doing their thing. They haven't had a disaster. They're winning the games they're supposed to. So they've kind of been on they're kind of like I treat Norway at the beginning of women's championships. They're kind of just there doing their thing. But Shipshack, top scorer, and Danis Kristapans as the second highest scorer with 53 and 78% scoring percentage is absolutely phenomenal. Because that we haven't seen that in at least 2 years from Kristapans. So it is it's just like the good guys,
The big, very tall, good men doing their work.
And Luke's I'm excited to see them again live.
Yeah, they're just scoring goals at will. They have multiple games where they've reached 40 goals. They have 324 goals in the competition so far across 9 games. So they're the top scorers in the whole championship. And I just agree that it's been a pleasant surprise. I think there was a bit of talk of this kind of demise of PSG, their stars leaving. a little bit of uncertainty about the future, but they're a great team.
Yeah, I think that period in September when they had that one loss in the league to Toulouse, and then that's when they lost also to Veszprém. I think they showed a lot of character that they could put that behind them as well, and have looked strong since then. I mean, their wins in the Champions League as well have all been very comfortable. +4, +7, +9, +7, +2, +5, +5, +2. And the two closest games were both the games against Porto, which is a bit of a weird one because Porto, we'll get to them a bit later, have been absolutely pretty much rubbish all season long, but have somehow, I wouldn't say they have PSG's number because they lost twice, but they have something in their locker to play against that PSG team coming so close and pull off their two best performances this season against PSG. I don't know what it is there. There's a mix of players that somehow works for this Porto team. But otherwise, all the PSG results have been very, very clear and quite dominant.
What do you guys think about the goalkeeper pairing and how that's gone so far? Yannick Gren and Andreas Palika. They were kind of two completely different points of view in this at the start of the season. Some people were like, this is the most kind of stable and like top goalkeeper pairing you can get. And another view saying like, oh, these guys actually never really deliver all the time. They're kind of up and down. And at the beginning of the season, it seemed like neither of them were really shining. Like both they were winning games almost despite the goalkeeper performances. But what do you think of them so far? Are you impressed with them as a goalkeeper duo?
From my perspective, they haven't needed the goalkeepers as much because they've been scoring so many goals. So it hasn't been a real focus, I suppose. You know, the goalkeepers become more important as the tournament progresses, as the competition progresses, and the games go into that knockout period where one exceptional performance can win you a tie, and that's what you need. So I think Yannick Green has impressed me. Probably more than I expected from him. He's kind of come out as the number one goalkeeper for them this season, which I was thinking it was going to be the other way around. They have split time; they've been pretty equal, but I think Yannick Green has been the standout there. So I think it's good. They really focused on that. They got rid of Vincent Girard, who's now on the way to Kiel.
He got rid of them, Vincent Girard. You know, he was the one who...
He's bigger than the club.
He moved. He was the one who made the move to Saint Raphael behind their back when they said they didn't want him. And then he was like, well, screw you guys. I'm going to find another club. And then when they wanted him, it was too late. That's other interesting news. Maybe we'll save that for another day. Happy for Vincent, but yeah. What would you give them overall, Alex?
I gave him a straight A as well.
Okay. I'm going to go for an A-.
Why the minus?
Because there's only, at the moment, one other like real heavyweight team in there, and they lost to them.
Yeah.
That's the reason I wouldn't give them a straight A for that. I'll wait to see them face against Veszprém again and see how they get on.
All right, so AA and minus A for Chris.
I'm writing all these down as well.
Yes.
So
Maybe
we have the report card at the end of the end of the day. Who's next?
Veszprém, second in the group, of course. I gave them, so I'll tell you what I gave them straight away. I gave them a B-. Or no, B+, sorry. A B+ for this. I think their overall score maybe was hurt a little bit by that loss to Zagreb recently, so I think it
was hurt a lot. Don't sugarcoat this. It was hurt. Yeah,
maybe it should be B-
losing
actually.
To Zagreb. That lost them a full bar for me.
Okay.
Losing to Zagreb, you just can't do that, and losing comprehensively as well. 29-26.
You can do it though, right? Because they're probably still going to finish in the top two, despite that, unless they have a few more of those performances. It's quite Veszprém-like. They do this against lower opposition in the group phase. They kind of have these random performances. Not against Zagreb, mind you. That was quite shocking. That was quite shocking. But overall, the fact that they lose a game like that away from home, you know, they've done it against Porto, they've done it against Dinamo in the past. It's not the end of the world, I think, for me. But is there anything that has impressed you about this team?
I think Rasmus Lauge, has been very good. I think he's had 44 goals now, and I know he's been back from his injury now quite a while. But somehow it's kind of lingered in your mind that it was such a bad injury. It took him so long to get back to his good form again. It's really great to see him now really like cementing his place back as the team captain and just dictating everything that they do. So I think he's been good. Valupau, I think maybe hasn't lit it up like we maybe expected him to. But yeah, so they'd be probably my highlight and maybe a place maybe where they could.
Yeah, actually, their signings haven't impressed so far. Well, I think Pekmal Beck has been very good. I think he's been actually a revelation for them, very strong defensively as well. And Veszprem have been a really strong defensive team. Just 240 goals conceded over their 9 games. That's the second best in the competition. But Valupau, I was expecting big things from. Hasn't really lit it up. And Yahia Eldara, I was really hoping, I was wishing to see him at his best. And I don't think he's settled yet. I'm not too worried about either yet, but it is just interesting that Veszprem have been able to continue at a high level despite kind of using their old team.
Yeah. I mean, with Valupau, it's not like it's not the setup that he had before, right? Because in Meshkov Brest, he was the guy who needed to score, kind of a bit like he needs to kind of transform himself beyond the right wing position because they needed him a lot more than the right hand side to be involved. We know that's not the case with Veszprem. Your job as a wing with Veszprem is to run. Sometimes you get the ball. Sometimes you'll play half the game, then Gasper Marguch will come on and he'll get the ball 4 times, and that's just the way it is. And I think so with him and Bjarki Eilesson out in the left wing, it's hard to really put a minimum needed to show what a good performance from them is. If you look at their stats and they were like 50% scoring from the wing, then maybe you could say, okay, they're not settling in. But I think from what Veszprem acquire of these players, it can't really be defined on what they've done with their old teams, where both of them were really star players.
It is a little bit of a worrying sign for me, the low scoring numbers from all of their wingers, which I think basically translates to Veszprem's slow play. They haven't been an offensive juggernaut in the competition so far. They've really built their kind of winning mentality from their defense. That's worked really well, but overall they haven't been scoring as much as you would hope and not playing in this like lightning fast handball that we've seen across the competition so far. We've seen just teams fly through the middle with the new free throw rule as well, and that's caused this insane hurricane of a game. Veszprem have kind of gone the other way and are a little bit slower, and I do worry if that will catch up to them, when they start playing the teams on the other side who are lightning fast. What's going to happen to them? It might work, but it might not. So that's a question I have around them, and I gave them a B overall, primarily because of the loss to Zagreb.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a B as well.
A what?
A B.
A B.
A B.
A B.
A B.
Yeah. Okay.
An A B. No, just a B.
And maybe one last thing about Valupau before we move on is I actually just love him. I follow Veszprem on Instagram and I follow all their stuff, but he is one of these like workaholics. He is he does all these mad things like shooting with goggles that obstruct your vision. And he does these drills and like all of this real insane kind of personal work he puts in, which is great because Canton Mahe is another player who's exactly like that. And those two have hit it off and they're just doing crazy stuff together on a personal level. And it's just been really funny to watch that. And I think it's, I don't know how much goggles that obstruct your vision actually help, but it's he puts in the work anyway.
Where's this? See, it was goalkeepers that were using it, right? As well. I think that was the first wave of this goggles thing with goalkeepers, because then they saw less and they still had to make the saves. Interesting that he's using it out in the wing. Magdeburg, you're a big fan of Magdeburg.
Yes.
Well, they've Now that they finally won the league, I'm not that interested anymore.
Old news, huh?
No, it's been an interesting kind of experiment for them. I think we spoke about it, not on the podcast before, about Bennett Viger talking on the intensity of the games in the Champions League, and with having so many big games now, kind of week in, week out, that might have an effect, or that seems to be having an effect on the crowd. And on the players. I think for Magdeburg, though, that they're doing pretty much as I expected them to do. You know, I didn't think they would storm through anything. I think they are looking at this season as a bit of a test in how to manage both domestically and in the Champions League. As we're saying in the Bundesliga, it's really tough at the top at the moment. They've done all right. They've lost a couple of big games. And the same here in the Champions League as well, losing to Georgie in a last second shot, losing to PSG, which is kind of expected. But overall, I think they've done pretty much what I anticipated before. So for my rating for them is a B-. Nothing. It's kind of a bit better than average, but kind of what you expect from a team like that. I didn't think they'd be challenging, a bit like you often see with Flensburg.
I don't know, but like they're Bundesliga champions. You know, we can't just look at them as kind of newcomers, that plucky underdogs that have come into this competition. They're Bundesliga champions. I think they should be compared against how we would look at Kiel or Flensburg.
And they're doing better than Kiel.
We'll get to that, that's for sure. But I think I've been a little bit disappointed because they have lost the big games. They haven't really been able to transfer their success from Bundesliga directly into Champions League. I think you have a good point about, you know, they're still figuring it out, but they're a very impressive team. And I think they should be doing better than 12 points in the competition so far, kind of taking out the minnows at the bottom. So I gave them just a C, actually. So a little bit disappointing, kind of average performance from a team I think should be doing better, at least picking up, you know, more from the bigger teams in their group. But their Icelandic duo has just been insane.
Brian, tell us more about the Icelandic duo.
Right, Brian?
No, I just said it was in my notes here. The exact same thing. Magnussen and Christiansen here, just the most exciting mix, I think, of players in handball at the moment. So, as you tweeted out, Alex, for that World Championship coming up in January, that's a very exciting. Two very exciting players who are in great form at the moment, and so they're probably the two big highlights of Magdeburg's performance this season, domestically and in Europe so far. But I gave them a C+ because on the one hand, yes, you have to get used to the Champions League. And on the other hand, oh God love you, getting used to the Champions League, you know? Like, that's what you sign up for.
You might not be there next year.
Exactly, yeah, you might not be there next year.
That's the point, though. They have to find the balance between, you know, excelling over the long run in Champions League and Bundesliga, because maybe they realize that is a real danger, that they could do well in the Champions League and also finish third in the Bundesliga, and then they're back to the European League next season.
Yeah.
And it's one of these things, I think, only when we look back at it, if we look back at it, to see whether there's a real plan in place. Because I think there is, looking at the team. I've seen them more in the Bundesliga than I've seen in the Champions League this season. But it seems to be players have very different roles as well in the two competitions. Like, in particular, with the likes of O'Sullivan and Bezjak, who are purely defenders in the Bundesliga. And I don't know if they're just being... I mean, in the past, they've been used a little more in both ways. But they seem to be holding on to players to only use them in the attack. The same with Kai Smits not playing so much in the Bundesliga, except when it's really necessary. He's come in a few times and done well. And Damgaard as well hasn't really come into this season yet. He was a player who was basically kept on the bench for the first 7-8 games of the season as he was coming back to full fitness. So I think he's trying to, Bennett Viger, this is, and Magdeburg as a whole, are trying to use the team in a certain way to ration them between the two competitions. So maybe that's just the way he wants to use them for the whole season. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see as it goes on.
Yeah, get over yourself, like, just play some handball. Anyways.
So what did you give them, Alex?
I gave him a C.
Okay.
C+ for me, and you were a B-. Okay, good. Dynamo.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Let's talk about it first before we give our grades. I think when you look at the squad that they have, when they were doing the double over Płotsk, I think it really cemented them that they really belong in this league. When you're beating a team like that who were so impressive in the European League so long, and a team that other people have said, yeah, they should be in the Champions League. And when you do the double over them, I think you really are cementing your name in the Champions League, that you do belong here. Falling just short against Veszprem, lost by 3, drew with GOG and lost by only 2 to Magdeburg. And when your best player is Ali Zayn, who's a good player, I think it just shows you how well Xavi Pascal has done with this squad. I think they've really overperformed. Can they do it for the whole season? Probably not, but I think they've had some really, really good performances so far.
I'm really happy for Ali Zayn. I think he, in Barca, he was used the way he was needed, but seeing him play for Egypt, I think I spoke about it maybe last season when he was with Barca. Based on seeing him for Egypt, I was expecting a little more, him to be used in a different way. That wasn't the case. It worked out fine, but now he's getting to really show the player he is at this level. So I'm really delighted for him that he's producing what he's doing with Dynamo, and it is really interesting because I didn't think they would be doing as well again. Even though the team had gotten better, I didn't expect 9 points at the halfway mark.
How much do you attribute all of this to Xavi Pascual?
Almost all of it, because I don't think those players would be there without him in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, you look at the squads, above and below them in the table. Look at Magdeburg's squad. Almost all their players would walk into the first team in Dynamo. And the team then just below them, GOG, I think, have a lot more talent in their squad as well. So I think they definitely are overperforming. And when a team like that is overperforming, I think you have to give the credit to Pascal.
Who apparently
is
is
moving on. Yeah,
apparently is favourite to take over PSG. Raul Gonzalez.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one.
Raul Gonzalez going to Szeged, Pascal going to PSG, and does that mean that Pastore goes to Bucharesti?
I don't think so.
Hey, it would make sense. It's a little bit of a pity if that does happen, if Xavi Pascual does leave this project as it's just coming to fruition. I think there was parts of it about kind of the Romanian national team kind of building with Xavi Pascual as well. Yeah. So I think it would be a pity if he left. But yeah, I gave them a B because I think they've done a really good job.
B+ for me.
I give it A- just for the squad that they have and how unexpected it's been. If they had 3 points, you'd be like, yeah, okay. But 9 is, I think, for the squad they have, and I think it's fair to say that they've overperformed. So
I think they have a good squad. They have a good squad, I think. They have some big players in there.
It is, but it's kind of like
Mamdu on the line, Bokan, Gorbindo experienced, Lazar Kukic is...
For me, it's a very European League squad, and they're playing out of their socks. Like,
fair enough.
It's the kind of team Alex would put together. And, I think there's a bit of, you're getting players there that are... kind of the sum of the parts is greater than the individuals with a lot of these players buying into the project.
All right, talk about GOG, G-O-G. G-O-G. Maybe Alex, you can start with this since they're your bread and butter.
I love them. I love them so much. They're so fun. Watching their games against Magdeburg has just been the highlight of my season so far, because it's this... we talk about this new dynamic, fast handball, little bit small ball style. It's just lightning fast, and they play this really fun type of handball, which is reminiscent to like the old French teams. When a player kind of breaks into space, jumps up, and then like while they're in the air, they kind of make a decision of what happens. And there's a lot of off-ball movement. So it's usually one of the backcourt players, put like Morten Olsen and Madsen, and they basically like someone makes a move at full speed and in the air or in a dynamic movement, there's just players running off the ball, whether it's kind of behind a defender that's stepped out, whether the winger is making space for himself. The line is really active. So Lucas Jurgensen has been a real revelation on the line as well. And but watching those two games against Magdeburg is just so much movement, so much dynamism that it's amazing. And this is a team that lost all of their best players last year. It's crazy. Hallgrimsson, Giesel, Bergendahl, they just pumped these young Danish talents into the squad, said, here you go, 21-year-old Simon Putlik, this is your team. And he's risen to that occasion. And it's just been a joy to watch.
You have some ages there, Brian.
Yeah, so Putlik is 21 years old, 52 goals. Not bad. Oscar Rasmussen, 22 years old, 26 goals. Madsen, 21, 49 goals. And Lucas Jurgensen, like we need another Jurgensen in handball, 23 years old with 40 goals. So that is just really, really incredible. I think none of us, we talked about this in the preview of the season, that we didn't expect much. And it's going to be a very, very hard season for this GOG team. But that conveyor belt of talent, I think, has surprised a lot of people. And it's a joy to behold.
It is really, like when you were talking about the movement off the ball when players in the air, like the French style, it is something that has been lost a little bit. And I think teams in defenses are quite used to seeing when a player is going up, because it is also, if you're not able to do it, let's talk about the level we played at. One of the
you're not allowed to.
Sacred rules is don't pass the ball, don't do a jump and then pass. Just play the ball, right? And we're used to saying, if someone's going up, chances are, they're shooting, or two defenders come out and then they play the ball into the line, and then it's like a genius move. There's Georgi doing this non-stop. Like, there's absolutely two ways he can do it, and it's a nightmare for the defenses, because if they step off, then they have the wherewithal to take the shot, but they're also looking for the movement, looking for the passes. So, exciting times with Georgi. I'd like to see them, get a decent group finish here and then really challenge someone in the playoffs, because I think they can really make someone in that other group sweat in the knockout rounds.
Yeah, for as much as we're singing their laurels here, praising their laurels?
Singing their praises.
Resting on your laurels. Oh my God, I'm all confused. But they still are fifth in the group, and I think that young aspect of the squad probably can be their downfall, because they've been in a lot of games as well, but then right at the end then kind of fallen short. So I think the experience they lack is probably one of their negatives.
The back-to-back games were against PSG, right? So they've got them both out of the way now. So that's a good sign as well. Yeah. That's they have got the top dogs out of the way at the moment.
And they've also, as opposed to Dynamo, they've performed really well against the top teams. They haven't quite got there, and that's I think that's the youth aspect to them. But they've, they really put it up against PSG, and they really put it up against Veszprem. Weren't quite able to pinch those games, but it's something that I feel like they're growing into the competition, and as it goes into the knockout stages, anything can happen.
Good. So I gave them, because based on my expectations going into the season, I gave them a B-, because I thought, you could have easily thought at the start of the season they'd be sitting in the bottom two. So B-, maybe a bit generous, but I felt I was a bit more generous with Group A anyway, because I feel like a lot of teams in here did perform well. I'm a bit harder on Group B, as you see later.
I have a feeling Alex is going to be even more generous. Alex?
Yeah, your feeling is right. I gave him B+. And that's based on the way they've played, as opposed to results exactly. I think I've just enjoyed watching their handball so much. So B+.
I'm a little more generous than you, Brian, a little less generous than Alex. Give them a B.
We're pretty close with all these so far. This is pretty incredible. Actually, we haven't been, only one time we've had twice, different letter. Otherwise, we've all been PSG all A's, Veszprem all B's, Magdeburg,
different types. Yeah, different types of,
But I think the as you said, the group has been a bit of a pleasant surprise. As opposed to the other side. So it's nice to be generous to these teams.
We can only base it on what we're seeing so far.
Płock back in the Champions League after a few seasons. I think have been one of the strongest teams in the European League, getting to 2 finals, 2 seasons in a row. So it's good to see them back. I think they've been decent. Nico Medega has been a big loss for them in the backcourt. I think when you were watching them last season, he was really their motor in the backcourt, and you kind of never knew what he was going to do often. And he's a really dynamic player and an incredible assister, can also score goals as well. But he's Mr. In-Flight Goal, I think, is my association with him. And his loss and his injury, he hasn't played this season yet, I think has been a big dent in their armour. I think it's been fairly okay for them, but they have missed him.
So big news with Płock as well is that they've come to a seemingly mutual agreement to terminate the contract of their first choice goalkeeper, Christian Pilipovic.
Oh yeah,
he's gone, and apparently for some kind of personal reasons.
Everyone hates him.
That's your words, not mine. We've heard from some people before. Also I've trained with him before. He can be a bit of an arse.
Yeah.
But that was a long time ago. And so he's left the club, which is interesting. And we'll see if they're able to find a better goalkeeper in the middle of the season.
They've also, so in kind of keeping with transfer news, Kosaratov going to Veszprem next season. That's going to be a big loss for them going forward. He's really impressed in the competition so far.
I'm pretty sure we talked about this exact progress, right? At one point, he was like, he's going to Płock, then he goes to Veszprem. It's kind of like and then who knows what happens after that. That'll be the real test for him.
But they do generally have some really likeable players, I find. Mm-hmm. This Płock team. We talked about Nico earlier. He's a very, very dynamic, likeable player. Kosaratov is Alex's wet dream. Then you have players like Tin Lucin as well as a bit of a...
I was just saying, your best friend, your upcoming star.
Upcoming star, yeah. So they do have some... the Serbian winger, Mitić as well, I think is also a player who brings it as well. So I think... At the time of recording,
Zhitnikov is a lovely guy as well.
Lovely man,
lovely handball player as well. I did expect more from them.
Yeah,
I think you guys did. Also from the beginning, the beginning of the season was quite positive. Then it seemed like they're showing their wares here. They're able to mix it, and we said that double victory for Dinamo kind of showed that they belong.
Yeah.
But it did the opposite for Płock.
Exactly. I mean, we kind of expected them to be where Dinamo are right now, and they've kind of swapped roles to a certain extent. But it's still a long way to go yet, so they might still bring it around. But I gave them a C-.
I went for a D+.
I went for a D+ as well, and I thought I was being harsh because I want to look at Płock as a team that has beaten Kielce. This is a team that in Poland is right there with Kielce, and they beat them in the Super Cup coming into the season. So that kind of, that's even without Mindegje. They were able to beat Kielce, and I was really expecting them to, really get into this competition. They have that European League experience as well, where they're playing top teams, and they just haven't. So D+ for me.
Yeah, I think when you put them side by side with Kielce and you say they're the second best team in Poland and how good Kielce are, and then you look at the Płock team and you see them kind of struggling down there in 6th position, it does kind of put it a little bit into context of where our expectations were going in and where they are now on the table. So I think maybe I should lean them more towards your grades now than mine, but I'll stick with C- for the moment. Zagreb.
Alex, you're someone who believed in them in the last year and a half. What do you make of them at the moment?
They have a chance of getting through. Look at them. They're sitting there on 5 points, and they've beaten Veszprem. So, anything can happen for this Zagreb team. I think they've exceeded expectations.
No, I think you have to give them a little bit of credit as well for ending that losing streak. I think you have to give them some credit to get out of that, because that's a serious rut to be in. And they were the laughing stock of the Champions League for quite some time now. And so to get out of that and then to beat Veszprem, I think you have to give them not a huge applause, a small applause maybe, for doing that. So I think I've given them a C- because I felt like that they could have been bottom of the table right now, losing all their matches still, and the streak keeps on going. But they showed some gall to get out of that, some guts to get out of that, and so not bad. And they have a good core as well with Musa, Dimitrov, Jupic. Who else is in there?
But I think on their team, I really would like to see more of their young players take a bigger role and to be thrown in. So they have Stefan Dodic, who was I think he was the MVP of the Under-21 World Championship. A real star. And they really haven't given him too much of an opportunity. It is still a team that's laden with these kind of older players, and they seem to be leaning on them a little bit. And I think if they had the same approach as Gay and there's also Saba Lemeter, who's been okay in the competition so far, and Zvonimir Serna. Those three players they can be more. And especially just Stefan Dodic has the potential to be a superstar. So I think they need to give him the reins a little bit more. And he's kind of growing into the season, but still, I'd like to see more there.
That's why I've given them a D+ here, because they have become the new Płotsk, laden with owl boys who were good for other teams. And they do, what I want to see Zagreb do is what they did 5-6 years ago, was be the team that, kind of like Celje, but maybe to a lesser extent, that they promote some young players that every season you knew that Zagreb were going to come up with a few absolute gems out of the youth system that were going to show their ability in the Champions League. And I want to see more of that from them if they're going to be, I think, a team that are anything like they used to be in the past. Because yes, they have some points on the board now, but I think they're still going to flatter to deceive for the names they have in the squad.
Alex, what did you give them in the end?
I gave them a C+ because I just had the lowest expectations for Zagreb, which they deserve for their performances over the last season. So C+ for me.
All right. Porto, 0 wins, 1 draw, 8 losses, F-. Okay, Group B. I'm joking. No, it's been, I think for me anyway, it kind of hurt this one a little bit. It was very disappointing, because if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know how we are absolute
Lucophiles.
Yes, we're just the biggest fanboys ever of Porto and Portuguese handball. And to see this happen, to see these dirty Scandinavians coming in and destroying everything that Porto have worked for, it's absolutely disgusting. And then see poor Miguel Martins up in Szeged, can't throw a ball. It's terrible. What's going on? Bring him back, get rid of those Scandies, and we're back to normal. You don't mess with the combination of these Portuguese players. They can only play together. On their own, they're just very average, but put together, a decent team, they can get some good results. They can do a dynamo.
Yeah. You've said all there is to be said, I think, of that. I mean, there's the balance, the chemistry has been completely off kilter.
And especially some of the players of, not yesteryear, but of past seasons who've done really well, especially on the wing. I feel like their wing positions have been pretty weak, with Branquinho and Araya. Yeah, have been a lot quieter than we're used to. So I think that's been a shame. But
all those Scandies hogging the ball in the backcourt.
Yeah,
but they are getting better.
They are getting better.
They might be figuring it out. They might be figuring it out too late. But in their last 3 games, they've got a 2-goal loss to PSG. They have a draw against Magdeburg and a 5-goal loss against Magdeburg. But maybe we're seeing this team gel a little bit. The Portuguese and the Scandinavians kind of figuring something out, but it's too late now.
Well, never say never. They have to play the likes of Zagreb and Płotsk and Georgi and like Dinamo. They're all teams that if they figure it out, there's no reason why they can't get points against.
Yeah, I think they probably expect more from a signing like Leso as well, who 14 goals. I mean, that's just not a good return.
Yeah. He's been a real disappointment.
So, because there is that...
They're also just really big and slow. They're really big and slow. That's especially in defense. I think they're missing some dynamism that they used to have in that defense.
Yeah.
And Ichirica, who I love, but defensively, he's just, all these small players are just running around him.
Yeah, and when we still have Cruz in the backcourt as well. How old is he now? 57. I mean, you can't be relying on him forever. I think it would have been clever to bring someone else in to replace him during the summer, but yeah.
Because of the last few games, I've given them an E-, because I think they got the point, which saves them from an F. And there is like on the this bell curve of like B's and C's and the odd D's.
Is there such thing as an F plus? No.
Well, I don't think there's such thing as an E- either. But in our scale,
I give him an F plus.
An F plus.
Yeah,
Ryan,
plus just for the late flurry.
How about you, Alex?
Straight F.
Straight F.
Yeah, straight up.
There you go. All right, we'll wrap it up for this part of the midterm evaluations. Group B coming in the next podcast. A few little bits and bobs before we let you go here today. Last week I was in Barca for the game between Barca and Kiel, and Victor Tomas got his jersey retired at long last, 2.5 years after he announced his retirement. And that was, I don't know if you guys got to see any of the clips of it, but it was actually a very, very nice ceremony.
It was. And a very full arena. Which is very surprising for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so good to see.
It was great. It just showed the love that the handball community, probably beyond Barca as well, beyond Barcelona, had, because a lot of people were coming in for this game, more than I've ever seen.
Should have brought him on for a penalty though. Come on, I know he's not in the extended squad, but surely could have fixed something.
That would be nice, yeah.
Or I'd let him take a penalty just for old time's sake,
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe.
Throw someone in goal.
But yeah,
Percival, he misses 4 in a row. Then
67 titles with the club.
Yeah,
so he's lifted the trophy 67 times. That's really insane. 3 Champions Leagues there.
Do you remember during the Euro you did your best all-time women's team? He's surely in contention, if not the winger of choice for the all-time greatest men's team.
It's an interesting one. Yeah, we have to think about that. He's a player who, I think, a bit like Gudjon Valor Sigurdsson, a player that wasn't the flashiest for a wing player. He just did his fucking job.
Yeah.
He got stuck in. He threw his whatever weight that he had, he threw it in there in defence. He was always the guy who had to get the first punch in, basically, little dig in, the first tackle. He led by example for a winger. And yeah, I mean, the years with the club speak for itself. 18 years in the first team, 8 of those as captain. Another few years before that going through the underage categories. And yeah, also considering how it ended for him, because it was a heart abnormality that was found that meant his career had to come to an end. It was probably coming to an end, but that basically took it out of his hands. He'd been waiting for this a long time. Also because it wasn't sure whether he was actually going to get the jersey retired because of Alex knows the politics of Barca as a sports club more than any of us, but with the change in the president, that wasn't a certainty. And I remember speaking to him once about that, because he works as a co-commentator for Catalan TV, that he was a bit frustrated, a bit nervous about that. So it's nice that it finally happened, and it definitely meant a lot to him as well. You guys know about Steven Valencia? Without looking at my notes here,
no.
Brian.
Oh, sorry. No, I just saw the name. I actually just saw the name. I don't know. No,
I've never heard of Steven Valencia. Enlighten us,
what
Chris.
would you, if you were to hear that name and think of sport, maybe even football? Where do you think he'd come from?
Ecuador.
Oh, it's a good guess.
Venezuela.
Close.
Yeah, something South American anyway. Yeah,
because Steven Valencia,
Colombia.
Exactly. He was born in Cali, Colombia, and at some point between his birth and now, in the last 22 years, he has moved to Reykjavik and is the star left wing for Valor. Is their joint top scorer in this season's European League with 31 goals, and is just he's dynamite. He's on the extended team for Iceland for the World Championship as well. And I just feel bad for Colombia better start moving quickly if they want to get him on board, because it's just fantastic. I love seeing players like this from born in non-handball countries like Colombia. Colombia could even be worse at handball than Ireland is. And yet here he is, Steven Valencia, doing the business. Looked up his Instagram account as well. He's a model. he's got it.
everything
He's got it
going
all. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes the move outside.
I'd say he's doing well in Iceland.
Oh yeah, I was just about to say, like a South American lad, model, a professional handball player. Oh God, love him. It's terrible, isn't it? Top scorer for your team as well.
But it's
top scorer in every way. Oh, sorry.
But yeah, Valor is a great story this season. I'm really happy to see an Icelandic team in the European League in the group phase doing their thing. I think we thought it might be a team like Selfoss because they were making a bit waves with the players they were producing. But great to see that it's Valor and they're doing well.
Yeah. Great to watch. Some great players in the backcourt, especially some really, really good young talent. I've really enjoyed watching it, and when I'm working my shifts every Tuesday for the European League, I really like it.
Yeah, but this is this Icelandic generation. It just keeps churning out talent. There's a new one coming. It's so exciting now that we're seeing even the Icelandic clubs start performing at a European level.
That'll be really good, I think, for them in the World Championship as well, having these players from Valor, because there will be some of them playing in the World Championship who are getting this European experience. In there as well, the old head of Björgvin Gustafsson in goal. Quite an interesting pairing, with Gustafsson playing alongside Motoki Sakai from Japan. I don't know how they're doing it, but Valor are making headlines in my mind anyway. I'm not reading these headlines anywhere, but they should be headlines.
Yeah, I wonder who their scout is. He's going to be in demand.
That's it.
Looking at the squad here for Valor, and there's Magnus Oli Magnusson, and he looks awful like the Magnusson we know as well. And I was thinking maybe they're relatives, but then again, everyone's relatives in Iceland. Don't they have that app?
They do have the app
that you can check if you're out dating someone. You can check if or everyone's pretty much related, but that you're not too closely related.
Yes.
So you're only seventh cousins or something like that.
So it's okay. Which is why it's great to, in Stephen Valencia's case, or anyone else who happens to be in Iceland at a given time, to not be related to anyone.
Well outside the gene pool.
Yeah, then you're a shoe-in for a good time. All right. After today's dating tips.
On that bombshell.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up for this one. We'll be back very shortly with another podcast looking at the midterm grades for Group B. Until then, goodbye.